Okay, thank you. Are you all set, Damien?
Yes.
You're all set, okay. So you'll,
30 seconds.
okay, so,
Mhm.
right after the opening prayer, then you come up.
We'll be off by what?
Above. Yep, and then, and the other one, I'll announce a musical interlude, and that's you. Oh, okay.
We got about 10 seconds to.
Oh, okay. I'm up.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for being here with us today. My name is Reverend Deborah Gretton Ganberg, and on behalf of the co-pastors and our Board of Trustees, we welcome you to Colby Memorial Temple for our Sunday service. To begin our service, Kim Pasquarello will light 3 lights symbolizing the unity of body, mind, and spirit. Thank you, Kim. Please rise now for our opening prayer and remain standing for our first hymn. Infinite intelligence, great spirit. We give thanks for this beautiful day. We give thanks for all the beautiful souls who came to attend this Sunday service here in Cassadaga this morning. May each person here be uplifted in some way by this service and take that inspiration forth into their day. For all our blessings and so much more, we say thank you, Spirit. Amen. And now our first hymn will be led by our musician, Damien Bonazzoli. And it's I'll Fly Away, and you all got a little piece of paper there with the words on it. I think some of you will know this one.
When this life is over, I'll fly away. You are the celestial shore, I'll fly away. I'll fly away. Hallelujah, bye bye. Just love you all the weary days and then I'll fly away. From land where joy will never end, I'll fly away. I'll fly away, free. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I fly away. Right, good job.
Thank you, Damien. Located on the handout in the front cover of your hymnal are our declarations of principles. Please join with me in reciting these principles together. We believe in infinite intelligence. We believe that the phenomena of nature, both physical and spiritual, are the expression of infinite intelligence. We affirm that a correct understanding of such expression and living in accordance therewith constitute true religion. We affirm that the existence and personal identity of the individual continue after the change called death. We affirm that communication with the so-called dead is a fact, scientifically proven through the phenomena of spiritualism. We believe that the highest morality is contained in the golden rule. Whatsoever ye would that others should do unto you, do ye also unto them. We affirm the moral responsibility of the individual, and that he makes his own happiness or unhappiness as he obeys or disobeys nature's physical and spiritual laws. We affirm that the doorway to reformation is never closed against any human soul, here or hereafter. We affirm that the precepts of prophecy and healing contained in the Bible are divine attributes proven through mediumship. And now the healing prayer is located at the back of your hymnal. Please recite with me the prayer for spiritual healing. I ask the great unseen healing force to remove all obstructions from my mind and body and to restore me to perfect health. I ask this in all sincerity and honesty, and I will do my part. I ask this great unseen healing force to help both present and absent ones who are in need of help, and to restore them to perfect health. I put my trust in the love and the power of God. Now, for those of you who would wish to receive spiritual healing, please take a seat along the wall and go to the next available healer. The rest of you, please be seated. While the healers work, the rest of us will join in a guided meditation. And so now just allow yourself to get comfortable in your chair. And close your eyes. Get ready to journey within. Becoming aware of your breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Just noticing the steady, quiet rhythm of your breathing. And letting go of any thoughts that may arise. just seeing them float into the air as a balloon floats gently into the sky. So that more and more you can feel safe and comfortable and relaxed. In and breathing out. We begin this healing meditation by calling on the Archangel Raphael, who is the supreme agent of healing in the angelic realm. And so I invite you now to ask Archangel Raphael to draw close to you. Asking him to help heal and balance anything in your body that is in need of his loving care. So allow yourself to simply breathe and be open and receptive to receiving Raphael's help. Just feel him with you now, along with his other healing angels, helping you and surrounding you with a beautiful healing light. Notice what color that healing light is for you. And allow it to flow through your body. And so relax your body now, letting your muscles loosen up just a bit. Letting your jaw muscles loosen. Your stomach muscles. Noticing any tension in your shoulders or neck or back. Just releasing and letting go. And the more that you just relax and breathe, the more you become open to receiving the divine healing from Raphael and all the angels. All the other healing angels are around you right now. And as you breathe, you're literally breathing in the healing energy that Archangel Raphael brings to you. And you can direct that healing energy to any part of your body that that is in need of some help and love and nurturing. And as you breathe out, also release any old toxins or lower energies without any unhelpful behaviors. Anything else that's not supporting your highest good in your life right now. Let it all go. Releasing and cleansing your whole body. And as you breathe in, allow yourself to take in deeply the great love and honor that Raphael holds for you. You are loved completely by this angel who looks past the surface, looks past any seeming mistakes that you think you've made, and just sees you for who you really are. A perfect and precious creation of infinite intelligence. Creation of the source of great spirit. Just allow yourself to take that in. You are a perfect reflection of the angel's light and love. And that can never be extinguished or tarnished in any way. And so sit quietly with the healing angels for a minute, allowing yourself to feel their healing light. And if there's anything that's been bothering you or concerning you, ask for their guidance. Let them speak to you now. And just know that you are safe and completely loved. Now you see the angels coming forth to you with a very special gift for you. A gift that is especially picked out for you and what you need in your life right now. And so just allow yourself to accept this gift. And just know that these angels are always with you. Knowing you can call on them whenever you need to. And feel their beautiful healing light. Now it is time to let the angels depart. Knowing again that you can always call on. So you see them going back to where they came from. Still feeling that halo of powerful healing light surrounding you. Taking a deep breath in, then releasing it. You can once again feel yourself coming back to Kobe Temple. Feeling yourself in your body, your feet on the floor, and just feeling the loving energy of Mother Earth coming up through your legs, through all of your body to ground you. So gently, when you're ready, opening your eyes, letting yourself come back into this room fully present, knowing in a deep place that you are better for this. Welcome back to Kobe Temple. If you have received a healing resulting in a correction or an improvement, please complete the yellow card in your hymnal and give it to the pastor at the back of the temple or mail the card into us. And you may also place it in the collection basket as well. We'd like to thank our healers for sharing their gift of healing this morning. And our healers from left to right were Jackie Arnold, Marty Hadaway, Reverend Dr. Sheldon Ganberg, Daryl Demerit, and Lori Carter. Thank you all so much for healing this morning. Now please stand for our next hymn, number 104, Flow Spirit Flow. Flow, Spirit, flow.
and all my fears flee. For the that He will be with power and my heart be strong. Fill me with joy and harmony. Thy song. Heal spirit weak. And fill me with love, that I may love thee. Fill me with joy that I song.
Please be seated. Well, it is my honor right now to introduce our speaker for today, Reverend Meada Jones. Reverend Meada is a certified medium, minister, and teacher here at the camp. While trained specifically as a medium, specializing in bringing through deceased loved ones with proof of their continued existence, Reverend Meada also Reverend Meada also respects the fact that at times, what is occurring in our everyday lives may take precedence. Over the years, Reverend Meada has served on numerous committees at the camp, including president of our board. Also, Reverend Meada is president of a nonprofit organization called Cause to Help Incorporated, which supports the four-legged community of Greater Casadega. So we're grateful to her for that. So please join me now in a very warm welcome for Reverend Meada Jones.
Good morning. There's a platform here that always makes me nervous. I don't like to step up on it because I'm always afraid I'm going to come tumbling down off of it. So I wanted to move that first. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the history of spiritualism, but I'm going to be talking about it in a very different way than you've probably heard before. Because what we tend to do is not really talk about the history of spiritualism, we talk about the history of spiritualists and what happened in their lives and what they achieved and that sort of thing. But I'm going to be talking to you about spiritualism as a social movement, not just mediumship. Well, obviously, that's the most important thing to us, but we contributed over the years so very much more than just the realization that we could communicate with the dead. And that's what I would like to talk about today, because in the 1800s, there were sweeping social changes going on. We had the Industrial Revolution in the first part of the 1800s, with all kinds of advancements in science. And there were a lot of things that had to be changed in those days. And we were very much part of that. We weren't just about spiritualism per se. We were about enabling people to self-realize. And for that, they had to be free. And there were a lot of people who were not free in one way or another. So while especially what we contributed to was the women's movement, which you may or may not know. And while the history books in school may not tell us about it, I think we need to tell ourselves about it and make sure that we recognize what we have done. So the 1800s saw a lot of changes in this country, a lot of scientific advancement, as spiritualists, we tend to put down science a little bit, I think, sometimes. But actually, science made spiritualism possible. And I'm talking about spiritualism and not mediumship, because remember, mediumship has always been with us. But the spiritualist movement came about in the mid-1800s. And it was a new age for a lot of things because science gave us technology, machinery to make our days shorter, in many ways improved our lives, in many ways didn't, but it created leisure. Now we could send our kids to school. Now people could read maybe, and that changed everything. Reading, you could come home at night after work and actually turn on a light. So maybe you could do something besides just eat and go to sleep when you came home. And it was the birth of individualism, the 1800s. And I want to flag a book I'm going to be basing a lot of my talk on, which is up in the bookstore. It's called Radical Spirits. And those of you who know the name Anne Gaiman, I'm forever indebted to her for putting me on to this book. She said, Meada, you have to read this. Knowing what I know about you, you have to read this. It's not the easiest read in the world. So it's a PhD thesis. And so you may want to read it slowly, but I think it's well worth the read because it's going to teach you a lot about spiritualism that maybe you didn't know. So I want to read a quote from her book just to give you an idea of what really was going on at that time and what spiritualists also were interested in, besides just the communication. And this is by someone called Cora Wilborn. Against all forms of slavery, against the sale of my Black brother and sister, against the education and sale of maidens for the marriage altar, against the tyranny of labor as it enjoined in our northern cities and our factories and our households, the heartlessness of landlords, the tasking of the wretched seamstress, the burdening of orphans and widows with the double weight of humiliation and toil, the starvation wages that force young women into paths of degradation. So all of that was being considered because it was all about the individual and how the individual had to be free. And so it's very much part of what we did in those days. If you look at traditional religions, they were fear-based, basically. And they served a certain purpose. They held the community together. It was an age when we needed to protect ourselves from things, life events, illness. And it was basically dictated to us by men with reading ability, which is a very small class of people. But now we had science, we had some literacy, we had individualism, and we believed, as in other new religions also believed, that we could have a direct contact with God. We didn't need this middleman. And so that was going to change everything about our lives. It was finally time for spiritualism. Now, in the early days of the 1800s, we also have the Quaker religion, which was very important to spiritualism. But what started happening with Quakerism, as happens with all religions and happened to some extent with spiritualism, I'm going to get to that toward the end of my talk. First thing you know, people want to organize it, people want to control it, and it starts being what it wasn't originally. So what we had in our midst was a lot of disillusioned Quakers. And two of those disillusioned Quakers, the Post family, actually did a lot to bring spiritualism to the forefront. But there are many other causes out there too. The abolitionists, who were out there advocating for the freeing of the slaves, which remember hadn't quite happened yet. The feminists, the socialists, all manner of people were advocating for people's rights. It was a rebellion against authority, as well as a rebellion against death. Now, both feminism and spiritualism actually were born in 1848 in New York State, and they kind of grew up together. They really did grow up together. Not all feminists were spiritualists, but all spiritualists were feminists. And for the first time, inspiration was taking the place of book learning, so women could participate better. As I said, Quakers were moving toward us in terms of their way of thinking, and we were relocating religion to the home from the church. And the way we did that, we had publications now, which people could read, all kinds of spiritualist publications in those days, formation of home circles. And so it was a very different approach to spirituality that had been there before. But it was felt by the spiritualists, and they would have said too, it was felt by spirit, because this early spiritualism was trance lectured, and they lectured to huge crowds of people. And they believed that spirit was telling them that women needed to be freed from the limited education, from the laws denying them access to property and children, unequal rights in marriage, economic restrictions that forced them into dependence. All of those things had to change. They denounced the authority of the churches over the believers, government over citizens, doctors over patients, masters over slaves, men over women. All had to end because self-sovereignty was God's intention, according to the spiritualist. In those days, there were large meetings, especially in the Northeast. Huge gatherings, and all these groups that I've been talking about would gather at those meetings and promote their causes. Not surprisingly, every one of those groups decided that their cause was the primary cause, but they were all sympathetic to each other's causes. And there was all kinds of talking going on and educating. A lot of the speaking that was being done. Now, women it was not appropriate for a woman to stand up here in those days. It was a loose woman who got up in front of people and spoke. And so the spiritualists were really the people who got the American public used to that. But they would get up and they would be in trance. And what helped was that some people who might have been against it thought, well, they're not really speaking spirit, so it's okay. And so it kind of made it a little bit easier to accept. It was frowned on. Women just didn't do this sort of thing. But it was accepted by some for that reason. Now, they didn't have microphones either, so you had to project, which also was very unfeminine. And so that was frowned upon. But up came the spiritualists to talk. You know, Susan B. Anthony, who's the leader of the women's movement, has been quoted as saying that she really envied her spiritualist sisters because they could get up here and go into trance and just forget about the crowd, and they wouldn't be taunted for what they were saying because they gave them a lot of trouble. But basically, the spiritualists believed that spiritualism was the foundation on which all these other things was going to rest. And for the first time, women, what they did is they capitalized in a way on the traditional stereotypes about women, about their passivity and their purity, because they were channeling, they were passive in this, and they were more pure than men. And so a lot of people could accept their message when they wouldn't normally listen to any woman who would stand up on a platform. And it helped those women being in trance to overcome their self-doubts and actually to overcome the doubts of the audience who wouldn't have thought to trust a woman's word on anything. So come the mid-1850s and on, women were speaking in public. Now, other women were speaking in public too, and they had a much harder job in a way. But what the spiritualists did was they opened things up and got people more used to it. Now, some of the things that the spiritualists and these other groups advocated, a couple of them were protesting enforced motherhood, which I'll explain. And they were known for advocating free love, which is kind of funny to us, but it wasn't the free love we think of. But they always, especially if they want to put a spiritualist down, they talked about this free love too. Now, what they meant by the enforced motherhood is basically in those days, birth control was abstinence. That's how you did it. But it was illegal for a wife to refuse her husband. And women had sometimes 10, 15, sometimes even 20 children in their lives. And they had no right to say no. And when they spoke up about these things on the platform, they did sometimes risk jail time. They did it anyway. And as far as free love, what they meant was a marriage where there was no love. That a woman should not have to remain in the union when there was no love. And often there wasn't. These were arranged marriages. You know, we criticize some cultures in this day and age for their attitudes toward women, but it do us well to remember we haven't been this free for that long. Well, all we have to do is go back to the 1800s. It's a very different thing. So the spiritualists and other feminists of the day believed that the only thing that could sanction and make sex moral, if you will, was love. It wasn't a church and a man in a church. They advocated for liberalized divorce laws. And at this point, I want to bring up Mary Fenn Davis. I was talking to a spiritualist the other day who does a lot of lecturing on the history of spiritualism, and she says, I've never heard of her. And to me, that's a darn shame. Mary Fenn Davis was Andrew Jackson Davis's wife. And she was every bit the advocate that Andrew Jackson Davis was. And she actually had the courage to leave her own state and go to a state where it was actually legal to divorce the man she was with because there was no love there. And she eventually found Andrew Jackson Davis. And the two of them, she was a well-known feminist, she was a well-known spiritualist. And why do we leave her out of everything? I find that very unfortunate, but I think if you're a student of mediumship, you should really find out a little bit more about Mary Fenn Davis. Now, medical men, we're still battling that a little bit, aren't we? But they were really battling it back there because they believed that a woman's body was inferior. And imagine creating 15 babies, but your body is inferior. But it was prone to insanity. And so there was a lot going on about that. And I want to read you something that you're going to find humorous, but you have to remember was taken seriously in that day. And this is written by a medical doctor. The angle at which the womb is suspended in the pelvis frequently settles the whole question of sanity or insanity. Tilt the organ a little forward, introvert it, and immediately the patient forsakes her home, embraces some strong altruism. These examples are Mormonism, Mesmerism, Fourierism, socialism, and often spiritualism. She becomes possessed by the idea that she has some startling mission in the world. She forsakes her home, her children, her duty to mount the rostrum and proclaim the peculiar virtues of free love, elective affinity, and the reincarnation of souls. That's coming from a respected expert. This is what they were up against. And it's funny now, but in those days, a lot of people read that and took it to heart. There were many spiritualist women who were associated with the formation of the first women's medical college in 1850. The Banner of Light was one of the most well-known spiritualist publications. They wrote an article at one point, published an article about riding astride a horse, because remember, you couldn't do that. You had to ride side saddle. And the proper clothing, because clothing became an issue too. Women wore very restrictive clothing. And so we had to change that. And meat eating. I remember when I was at Lilydale the first time, years and years ago, I picked up a book by a lady named Abby Judson, and she was talking about vegetarianism way back then. But some of them felt that that was just one other form of male violence. But basically, mediumship was a nervous derangement. And so this is what we were up against at that time. Now, the day came, as it always does in movements, when certain people, unfortunately, most of these people were men, but they decided that the spiritualist commitment to the individual conflicted with our need to organize and spread the word. Well, there's something to that, isn't there? But a lot of the mediums were very against it. And what happened in the ensuing times was the value on leadership and education once again overtook the inspiration. And men started controlling the movement. And mediums increasingly had less power than they had to begin with. So, the other thing that changed was that instead of talking from the platform like I'm doing now, except they were in trance, more and more they were moving toward materialization. And with the materialization, the medium went into the cabinet, and she was tied up so she couldn't cheat. And you see what's happening here. But so a lot of mediums would go to these early conventions where they were trying to form what originally or eventually became the American Association of Spiritualism. They would go and protest it. And they just felt that we were losing everything that was of value in the movement. And what it resulted in, to some extent, is the formation of what was called camp meetings. Now, you know, SCSCMA is Camp Meeting Association. You might have wondered why. You might have thought it was because they came down here in the winter from Lilydale. That's part of it. But there were camp meetings all over, especially in the Northeast, where people would come away for about 2 weeks, and there would be mediumship, but there would be fun and that sort of thing going on. And more people were attending those than actually the Association of Spiritualism. But in time, of course, the need for organization overtook the need for just mediums kind of doing their own thing. Now, the thing about organizations and movements is when you want to make them more widely accepted, you start compromising. And that's just one of those things, it's just the way it works. And so you start accepting more conservative points of views. The 19th century mediums were radicals. Mediums today are not radicals. But so they started attracting more conservative followers. And actually, we've gotten to the point where the politics is pretty much out of spiritualism, isn't it? But let's look at that a little bit, because so now we have spiritualism that wants to become an ism, and many people oppose to it. I think we've done fairly well, if you think about our religion, because we don't have a dogma. We have the principles, and they're sort of general. And we just ask that, okay, if you believe in these, you're basically a spiritualist, even if you want to follow some other kind of a religion. But there's no dictated dogma. We still very much encourage individualism. And so we haven't let that go. We have allowed women into the fold, as has the rest of the country, basically. And we've just, lost some of our politics, but perhaps we don't need them anymore. But I think it's important that as spiritualists, we see spiritualism in all its aspects and in all it's contributed to this country. As I say, other people may not give us the credit, but we need to give ourselves the credit. And in my opinion, maybe the history of spiritualism needs to be taught in a slightly different manner than we've been looking at it. And so I hope today I've given you a few ideas that maybe you weren't aware of before. Well, thank you for listening.
Sorry, I have to hop up again. I'm shorter than her. Thank you so much, Meada. During our musical interlude, we will be passing the basket, and we thank you in advance for your generosity. Our musical interlude will be presented by Damian Bonazzoli.
Thank you.
Thank you, Damian. So let's take an attitude of prayer now. We give thanks for all of these gifts before us, so generously given. And we see this loving energy going forth to support Casadega in doing its loving healing work in this world, which is so needed. We say, thank you, Spirit. Amen. And now it's time for our announcements this morning. Next Wednesday, July 26th, our message bearer is Reverend Meada Jones and Claire Van Cott. That's at our Wednesday message service. And next Sunday, July 30th, our guest speaker at our 10:30 service right here is Dickie Joe Mullen. Every Sunday, we have Adult Lyceum, also known as Sunday School, from 9:30 to 10:15 a.m. in the Andrew Jackson Davis Building. Next Sunday, July 30th, our Lyceum speaker is Reverend Deborah Brett Gamber, which would be me. And just a heads up for those of you who are planning to come to the next membership orientation. It's not today, it's not this Sunday, but I'm just giving people a heads up for next Sunday. The new member orientation session 2 will be then from 1 to 2:30 p.m. in the Berkner Building and 1090 Stevens Street, across the road from the bookstore. It missed getting printed in our trifold this month, so I just wanted to let people know that it is still happening. To participate in absentee healing, please print the name and first initial and the last name of a loved one, a friend, or even a pet in our healing book at the left corner of Colby Temple. Flyers for camp events are at the back of the temple, and they're in your hymnals too. You all have these flyers in your hymnals. And you're welcome to take them home, give them to a friend. There are more in the back there. We have plenty of them, so if you want to give them to a friend, please help yourself. Also, our website, casadega.org, also has the monthly information as well as upcoming events. So you can always go on to casadega.org and find pretty much everything you want to know about us. Please stand for the next hymn, number 9, I Love to Tell the Story.
Angels and their glory, all angels and their love. I love to tell the story because I know it's true. It's that my heart and nothing else can do. I love to tell the story, 'twill be my theme in glory, to tell the old story of angels and their love. I love to tell the story of wonderful King. Then all the golden fancies of our golden tree. I love to tell the story, it did so much for me. And that is just the reason I tell it now to thee. I love to tell the story, 'twill be my theme in glory, to tell the old story of angels and their love. I love to tell the story for those who know it. They hungering and thirsting to hear it like a rest. And when it sings of glory, I sing the new song. 'Twill be the old story that I have loved so long. I love to tell the story, 'twill be my theme in glory, to tell the old story of angels and their love. All right, good job. Please be seated.
We even did that without music.
Yeah, well, that's right. We had our tambourines, thanks to Reverend Judy Cooper.
For the message portion of our service, Reverend Meada will be your message bearer. So please let's give her a warm welcome.
Hello again. Okay, to start with, I'd like to come to this lovely lady in the purple here. You've got such a wonderful energy. And I know that the lady standing behind you also has a wonderful energy. I believe it's a grandma, but she was a very strong lady. And as I spoke today, I felt like she was understanding a lot of things I've said today. Would that make sense to you? You know, I'm just feeling she was a very strong lady and she was up against a lot. And I'm feeling this is a lady who would have basically died in her boots, but she kept going and going and going until she could not go any longer. But she held the family together. She beat all the odds and she kept things going and made it look easy. And just all the way through, she just had a wonderful influence on the family. It's one of those people, when she goes, you can't replace her. And so she's just wanting to say hello to you today. I feel like she feels like you've had your set of challenges also, and she very much wants to encourage you with the direction you're going, and just reassure you that if sometimes you don't feel like you have all the support you need around you, you've got it coming from the spirit world. Okay, I'll leave that with you. Okay, let's see, where am I going now? I'd like to come to this gentleman right on the end here. Yeah, hi, how are you? You don't have to stand if you don't want to, but I've also got a lady here for you too. And I think also I might be going back 2 generations or a little, it might be a mom. Sometimes I'm mistaken about that. But I'm feeling I want a country setting with this, if that makes sense. And I'm feeling a lady who, you know, maybe was ahead of her time in some ways, just in her thinking, not necessarily in what she did, but in her independence and her just ability to kind of take charge and make things happen. There's very much a feeling of interaction between the two of you as you're growing up, not just, you know, get you clothed and fed and that sort of thing, but teaching you about the person she wanted you to be in life. And she tried very hard to just instill certain values, and she's very proud of what she's created here. I feel like she's been over for quite a while now, if I'm not mistaken. But she, yeah, she made her, she put a stamp on things definitely while she was here. And she wasn't a in-your-face kind of a lady or anything like that. She was just one of those people who just, no matter what was happening, she was just sort of solid and there and, you know, survived whatever had to be survived. And I'm just gonna leave you with that, okay? All right, we have time for one more here, let's see. Got this lady right straight in front of me. Hi, how are you? Okay, let me see what I've got for you. Now, I feel that the lady I have here might have gone a little bit too early, if that makes any sense to you. And if it's not a friend, then there was a strong friendship. It might have been a relative, but just because you're a relative doesn't mean you're a friend, you know, and I'm feeling I'm feeling a hard fight at the end, if that makes sense. You know, really, you know, just trying to keep her morale up. You were wonderful with her. You know, when you're sick sometimes, you don't need somebody saying, oh, don't say that, don't say that. You need somebody who's going to listen and respect what you're saying, respect your fears, whatever it was. And I feel like you were that lady that she wants to thank you. You might feel like you might have felt sort of powerless at times, but you weren't, she says. Believe me, you were not. And she says you gave her a great deal because she had to go. It was time to go. And she was a little bit afraid, but she was a lot less afraid because of you. And so she doesn't ever want you to think that you didn't do enough for her. You were her pillar. You were her pillar. She was everybody else's pillar, I feel. And she wasn't a lady who knew easily how to ask for help, but you knew that she needed it. And you just gave it to her. And you know, she just wants to, she got to the spirit world and wondered why she fought so hard, because it's so easy after she'd been here, because she went through a lot, didn't she? And I think that she might have been disappointed in some people around her, actually.
Yes.
But you know, she says, you made up for it all. You were there for her. That's what she focuses on. She's doing well now. She was a very good woman. She did a lot of things for a lot of people. And she continues to do that in the spirit world. And so she's just kind of flowered again for a while. She felt like, you know, she wasn't herself anymore. She couldn't do any of the things she had done when she was young, you know? And so she says, I've been freed. I've been freed. I'm back to being myself. And she just says to you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, and I'll leave that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Meada, for those messages. We would like to remind everyone that we will have our afternoon message service at 12 noon right here in Colby Temple. A group of mediums and student mediums will be giving spirit greetings to as many individuals as they can reach during that time. Everyone is welcome. We encourage you to visit our bookstore today, which is open from 11:30 to 5 p.m. today, and open Monday through Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Please rise for our closing hymn, number 203, Let There Be Peace on Earth, and remain standing for the closing prayer.
And be peace on earth, and let it be with me. Let each other in perfect harmony. And seas begin with me, be the Lord, and now my soul. Take each moment and breathe each moment in free. Knowing that somewhere
And our closing prayer this morning is a favorite of Reverend Meada Jones. It's a Celtic blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rain fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Amen. Have a wonderful Sunday. Enjoy your day, and thank you so much for being here with us.
That was a nice hallelujah, Damien. Very nice.
I've only been performing 40 years.
Yeah.